Hi everyone, Guthany Baitano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Dillinger Escape Plan record, Dissociation. This is the latest and final album, apparently, from one of metal's most technical and intense bands. There was a rumor that Dillinger was going to be dropping a record this year, but fans did not expect that release date would come with the news that this was going to be their last LP, which is kind of surprising because it's not like the band has been at a low point right now. I really loved their last album, and I would be hard-pressed to pick what is their worst record among the four previous to that album. Maybe the band wanted to call it quits because there are crazy tensions keeping them from moving forward, or they wanted to call it quits before the well ran dry and they started putting out mediocre records. I don't know. Regardless, the Dillinger Escape Plan goes down swinging on this album. But I do think they use this record as an opportunity to have a little fun and indulge in a little bit of hero worship here and there. There are some moments where they verge off into some really epic and grand progressive metal, and there are lots of passages on this thing that feature these soaring alt metal vocals that sound a lot like the Deftones. Also, all over this thing, the band favors this brittle, harsh distortion that just intensifies as the screams and the drums and the guitars just layer on top of each other. Sounds very much like a Converge album. And then there are these sudden instrumental shifts all over this record where all of a sudden the band is playing a little jazz or something like that. Definitely pulling from that Mr. Bungle playbook, and I think there's quite a bit of a Mike Patton vibe all over this album. And then completely out of left field, the band on the song Fugue pulls together this blend of IDM, some jungle or drum and bass, with live instrumentation mixed in there too. It sounds like a mix of Aphex Twin and Square Pusher, of course with like a little bit of a metal twist. And the song Surrogate suddenly drifts into this ambient soundscape that doesn't last too long, but still it is there. And the band uses that as an opportunity to introduce some drearier guitar passages and angsty vocals. Meanwhile, the bits of spoken word on Wanting Not So Much As To sound a little emo. I'm not attributing that to any band in particular, or maybe even really the genre. They just sound emo as fuck. This is easily the Dillinger Escape Plan's most versatile album to date. Not only is the band as in the red as ever on this album, but they are really just throwing all caution to the wind and tossing all the shit they can at the wall, just kind of seeing what sticks. It's almost like they had a musical bucket list going into this record of everything they ever wanted to do on an album, and they find a way to work it in. But much of the album does sound like the Dillinger Escape Plan as usual. The busy and intense math metal rhythms and riffs, which often syncopate into these really intense grooves, played at insanely fast speeds, really abrasive sound, creative guitar work, crazy chord progressions, shrill screams coming from Greg, which balance out really well with his more cleanly sung vocals. The performances on this thing, especially vocally, are animalistic as hell. The band has this amazing talent for pulling together a metal recording that sounds like it has a real human touch. It sounds organic, but everything is so technical, so flashy, everything is executed with deadly precision. And the Dillinger Escape Plan put enough of their usual sound on this album so that all of these random, sort of unexpected ideas that they incorporate into this album, they all tie together really nicely. Because if they didn't at least stick to their guns a little bit on this record, I imagine this album could have just come off like a pile of mush, like really directionless, incoherent. It almost does border on that sometimes, especially on Fugue, which, as talented as the band had to be to pull that track together, as versatile as the band had to be to pull that track together, it does not match aesthetically, sonically, emotionally, anything with the rest of the album. I will say Manufacturing Discontent, while it is a decent track, it doesn't contain a lot of the creative twists and turns and surprises that a majority of the album does, so that was kind of a bit of a dud for me. I kind of feel the same way about the song Apologies Not Included, but on the final two tracks, the band does try to alter the flow of the record, alter the mood of the record a little bit, and give us some more dreary, low-key cuts to kind of end this album off on a sad note. And I appreciate that, even if there are some moments on Nothing to Forget that sound, you know, a little bit too much like Deftones worship to my ears. Still though, the closer, the most low-key cut on the album, features these dramatic string sections. This song has a refrain that no Dillinger Escape Plan fan is going to forget anytime soon. Finding a way to die alone, finding a way to die alone. Also, the previous track made reference to Please Let Me Be By Myself. I'm not exactly sure if these refrains are sort of in reference to the band's demise itself. Is it some kind of metaphor? Not sure. But given the context that we're dealing with here, it makes sense, I can't really come to any other conclusion, that the band is at least trying to be a little meta at this point as they are bowing out. Overall, I think this is a good record. I think it's an admirable swan song. I'm not as crazy about it as I am some previous albums of theirs, because there are moments where I think their experiments do go a little awry and don't sound that fantastic, as well as moments where it really does sound like they're beating a horse a little bit, they're treading a little bit of water. Still though, recording is great. Majority of the songs on this thing are great. Majority of the experiments on this thing go over well. I think fans are going to like this thing, and I think they're going to see it as an admirable finish too. And hopefully, even though the Dillinger Escape Plan is done, these guys go on to be involved in some other projects that are equally as interesting. RIP, you know, these guys had a great run. All the admiration in the world, and Godspeed, I guess. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. And please don't cry. Instead, leave an angry comment in the comment section. All sorts of links next to my head. Subscribe. Other videos. Website. You're the best. Dillinger Escape Plan forever.